Greetings, salutations, I'm Dexter from Research Stripped, and in this episode we will be covering allegations of trafficking that a team made against a Tampa, Florida strip club. Again, these are all allegations. Nothing has been proven in the court of law, one way or the other. We will be going over the timeline of events according to these court documents, with some commentary which is my opinion only, and not facts. And also, I am not a lawyer. In September of 2017, Roberto Bobby Torres III assisted Jane Doe, who I will be referring to as JD for the remainder of this video, in running away from her home. On the 30th of September, Torres took JD to TODD's couple superstore where he bought lingerie, shoes, and pasties, quote-unquote, of a type typically used by sexually explicit dancers and prostitutes, using Torres' credit card at 6:42 p.m. I have yet to hear about prostitutes using pasties. Also, for those of you that have purchased lingerie from such establishments, they tend to be one size fits most, being made of four-way stretch materials. So, even if the store refused to serve JD, all Torres would have needed was JD's shoe size in order to make the purchases without JD, either at TODD's or at another store. They then went to a few adult theaters, which are unnamed, who refused to hire JD before proceedings to Score's Gentlemen's Clubs. So, if we follow the complaint's reasonings, each of those clubs would be held as liable as TODD's for failing to report if they believed she was a minor. Yet, they failed to name the other places in the complaint. At around 9 p.m., the duo entered Scores, and JD was permitted to work there as an independent contractor after filling out an application using her fake ID. She worked there for about a week, took drugs, drank alcohol, and engaged in prostitution at a nearby hotel before Torres was arrested and JD was returned to her family. I am assuming that one of the local hotels contacted police due to JD attempting to use her fake ID. Roberto Torres III was arrested and pled guilty to child neglect, which he was put on probation, which he finished early on 29 July 2020. His father was also arrested, although the state decided not to prosecute. Then, on 29 January 2020, JD sues. So, what are the counts and allegations? Count 1 is abuse and sexual abuse of a minor by the strip club, since being a dancer there means that there is inherently abuse. Count 2 is abuse and sexual abuse of a minor by the house mom by facilitating JD's acceptance into the club. Counts 3, 4, and 5, negligence against the strip club and its corporate entities, since the complaint states that they owed a duty to protect JD due to her age. Count 6 is negligence against the adult store that sold Torres the stripper gear. Count 7 is negligence against the house mom. Count 8 is negligence per se against the strip club, which means that the strip club is held in negligence against any negligence that the employees did. Counts 9 and 10 are vicarious liability against the strip club's corporate owners, which is similar to if a 17-year-old drove her car into a house, her parents might be vicariously liable for the accident and the cost of it. Count 11 is battery against the strip club because JD stated that she was touched and groped while working there. Count 12 is battery against the house mom since he applied pasties to JD's breasts. Count 13, 14, and 15 is unjust enrichment, meaning that since JD was illegally working there, any profits that the strip club or its corporate entities made are illegal and due back to JD. Count 16 is pure bill of discovery. From my reading, I think it is that JD and her attorney wants to get all the credit card receipts and videotapes from the strip club while she was working there in order to find out who she left with to go to the hotel when she was a prostitute, so she could go after them. The case, I think it is just a hearing on the last count, is expected to start on the 23rd November on 2021 at Hillsborough County Courthouse in Florida. So, what to watch for? First is the linking of liability of Scores Tampa to Scores Holding and Scores Licensing, as it is usually more profitable to go after a corporation than it is to go after individual clubs. That's why there are so many counts, one against a club, one against a corporation, and one against licensing. Next is proving the club et al. Materially assisted Torres in achieving the majority of his illegal and abusive goals. The complaint states that Torres was later arrested and charged with human trafficking for commercial sexual exploitation and interference with the custody of a child. He ultimately pled guilty to related crimes, which, as stated before, that related crimes was child neglect, which is a bit different than human trafficking. And this assistance must be due to negligence, recklessness, and willful ignorance of JD's age and true identity. The complaint was very focused on that JD was developmentally delayed, had chronic medical issues, and was severely emotionally disabled. The complaint asserts that any adult acting reasonably who took the time to speak with JD would have readily determined that she was mentally compromised, lacked the maturity of an adult, and lacked the adult judgment capabilities. So that means that anyone who came in contact with JD would know that she was disabled. That means the bar staff, other dancers, customers, etc., which no one was able to do. Another focus is JD's fake ID, which the complaint alleges looked nothing like JD. Wrong color eyes, height, ethnicity, skin complexion, etc. The allegations might be true, but I can imagine a club at 9 p.m. on a Saturday with the club lighting, JD wearing the above-mentioned shoes, and so on. It might be difficult to tell just by a headshot alone in the club. The house mom who assisted JD in filling out the application made some errors on his part, such as failing to do the secondary ID check and failing to have JD sign the document correctly. The complaint also brings up Florida State Statute 39201, which reads as follows. Required reports of child abuse, abandonment, or neglect, sexual abuse of a child, and juvenile sexual abuse. Required reports of death, reports involving a child who has exhibited inappropriate sexual behavior. Mandatory reporting. A person is required to report immediately to the Central Abuse Hotline established in 39101 in writing, through a call to the toll-free telephone number, or through electronic reporting if he or she knows or has reasonable cause to suspect that any of the following has occurred. I'm going to skip one A because it doesn't apply, but part B is, I think, where the complaint is heading towards. Child abuse by an adult other than a parent, legal custodian, caregiver, or other person responsible for the child's welfare. The Central Abuse Hotline must immediately electronically transfer such reports to the appropriate county sheriff's office. And in 2, any person who knows or has reasonable cause to suspect that a child is a victim of sexual abuse or juvenile sexual abuse shall report such knowledge of suspicion to the Central Abuse Hotline, including if the alleged incident involves a child who is in the custodian of or under the protective supervision of the department. The question is, even if TODDs and SCOREs were mandatory reporters, which is usually defined by a profession such as healthcare providers, teachers, law enforcement, etc., but in order to be liable, such a person must know or has reasonable cause that the child is being abused. A middle-aged man with a person who is most likely post-puberty, which is usually completed by ages 15 to 17 for women, does not really enter the know or have reasonable cause, particularly if there are no obvious signs of physical abuse going on. Should the store have checked JD's ID? I lean towards yes, but going further than that, I really cannot say. The club is on a bit shakier ground, but they do have some defense because of the ID and the difficulty of proving that a reasonable person would know that JD was 17 and not the 21 as the ID states. Mental and emotional developmental milestones are difficult for most people to identify, especially in adolescence, since it covers from ages 12 through 21, and that the human brain does not stop developing until the mid-20s. And if someone is post-puberty, the signals are even more obscured. The complaint does say that it is public policy of the state of Florida that a sex trafficking victim's misrepresentation of his or her age, or even a bona fide belief that the victim is over 18 years of age, is not a defense to guilt of criminal participation in sex trafficking of minors, and is therefore not a defense available to any defendant here who purports to have acted in reliance on the identification that Jane Doe presented at the direction and insistence of Torres. Although they fail to give any specific legal reference, what they do reference is the strip club participated in the COAST program, which stands for Club Operators Against Sex Trafficking, of which I'll go into more detail in another episode. The complaint states that the strip club should have known that JD was being trafficked since the program's materials list. Is she accompanied by another person who seems to speak for them or hold their ID? And the fact that the performer is being dropped off and picked up by the same man every day as risk factors. It seems that the COAST program is an awareness program, which is defined as awareness program means community-wide or audience-specific programming, initiatives, and strategies that increase audience knowledge and share information and resources to prevent violence, promote safety, and reduce perpetration. Most awareness programs are not legally binding, and it might be difficult to prove that the club should be able to find every victim of trafficking. The final item to watch for is that the club is stating that Torres is the main bad guy in all this. He assisted her in running away. He obtained the fake ID for her. He purchased the dancewear. The remainder of the damage not caused by Torres was due to negligence on the part of JD. She chose to drink. She chose to use drugs. She chose to prostitute herself and enter, then lie at the strip club. I don't believe that this is victim blaming, in so much as saying that JD was an active participant in this venture, and if her actions caused her harm, it was herself and Torres that created the situation. JD never alleged that she attempted to remove herself from the situation, either by informing the staff at the club or law enforcement. I might think differently if Torres was found guilty of trafficking or if criminal charges were filed against the club, house mom, or the adult store. Since none were, and the fact that the club was extremely helpful to investigators after Torres' arrest belies any malicious intent. That is the case as it stands. There is a motion to compel a hearing on the 23rd of November 2021, as stated earlier, and I'll be posting the results of that hearing on Research Strip social media and the website. And with that, goodbye.